how to increase the speed of the camera in play mode permanently. For example, when we press the green button, when in the world setting game mode, override is set to game mode. Okay, so for this, there is a way for doing this. It is pretty easy to do that. And in order to show you guys, I'll just quickly share one of my Unreal Engine screens so that you can view from that. Okay, so this is the default third person template map, and so by default, if I play in this particular environment, you will have your mannequin over here. So the question that the student asked is, how do you increase the speed of the camera in play mode permanently when we press the green button and when the game mode override is set to game mode? So in order to do that, I will just quickly create a basic new level like so. Let's give it a few seconds, and there we are. So I'll head over to my world settings for a second and just set the game mode override to game mode. So I think as the question stated, you have to set the game mode override to game mode. So now if I click on play, as you can see, my camera is here. So in order to kind of manipulate this camera speed right over here, you can simply click on this default pawn that you see over here. Now once you click on this default pawn, you can head over to your details section, and what you want to look for is a property called floating pawn movement. Now this floating pawn movement basically allows you to pretty much change all the various different kinds of property with respect to this camera movement. So by default, we are using the WASD keys to move. So this is pretty much the speed for 1200. Now if I press shift F1 and if I kind of maybe reduce it, let's maybe set it to 100. So you can see that now my camera is slowed down and I'm currently still in the play mode. So as you can see, it is set. Now similarly, if I maybe increase it to, let's say 5000, a much more bigger value. Now you can see that I'm moving way too quickly. So in game mode and under the default pawn settings, this is pretty much where you can find the properties that you can just manipulate for however you want to, if you want to increase the speed or if you want to reduce your speed. Now again, if I open up the question, so what I just showed you is just the basic on how you can just manipulate the camera movement directly in your feed. So if and it is a manual process, so there is a blueprint available if you want to make it an automatic process. So I'll just quickly share that blueprint with you guys. So I think you guys should be able to see the blueprint. So this is a more automatic way that you can do it. Now you can build this blueprint as an actor class if you want to, or you can even add it in the level blueprint itself. Whichever you want, this will work for either way. And this is a more natural solution in which if you want to change up from the mouse wheel axis, that is if you want to increase it by scrolling upwards or reduce the speed by scrolling downwards, this blueprint will definitely work for that purpose. And if you want me to break it down a bit for you, what this is going to do is it's going to take the axis value, and your axis value basically is whether you're going in the positive, which is scrolling up, or you're going in the negative, which is scrolling downwards. So depending on which axis you want to increase this camera speed or reduce the camera speed, it will kind of fluctuate like that. And you're multiplying it by an offset, you're getting the player pawn, because by default in Unreal Engine, the property that we want to change the camera speed is in the default pawn. So since there is the default pawn in the override game mode, we are just getting the player pawn, which will by default cast to the default pawn. Now when we cast to the default pawn, we'll be able to get all the various properties within that default pawn. And the property that we were adjusting for the camera speed was under the floating pawn movement property. So now within that floating pawn movement property, if you remember, we were changing up the max speed. So that's why from as floating pawn movement member, we are dragging the pin node out and we are setting the max speed. And we are setting it in a value from 0 to 5000, and this value will change depending on our axis value. So this solution will work for you at runtime whenever you want to change it. And it is not restricted to the mouse wheel axis. You can, however, map it to any different kind of input according to whatever you feel like. But this general blueprint will work for the task that you want to achieve.